My name is Albert Bekfi. I'm the head of global pharmacovigilance at Biomapas, and my guest today is Raul Flores Medina from Argentina. He is our local expert for Latin America, active in not only in Argentina as a local safety officer, but also in Mexico, Jamaica, Chile, and Colombia. Right, Raul? Hi, welcome here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Albert. You're right. Well, thank you for the invitation and thank you to be part of this project.
Okay, thanks for joining, Raul. So I wanted to start with something very basic, just to understand the differences in the region. So we're talking about being a local safety officer. Is nomination to health authorities mandatory in the region? And if I'm really curious about all of these countries, is it mandatory for all the countries? Is it expected, or you don't need to officially nominate a local safety officer?
Well, as you mentioned it, and before to explain this point, I would like to mention that in Latin America, we don't have a common regulation for all the countries, as maybe you have in Europe. Here, each country has a specific regulation about the pharmacovigilance process. So in this sense, and answering your question, each country requests to be a nomination process for the local safety officer. In case of Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, you need to nominate a person formally in front of the local health authority. In case of Jamaica, which is the other country which we are working currently, this nomination is not requested by the health authority. Anyway, you need to introduce in the local health authority in Jamaica by an email at least,
okay.
In order to open the channel of communication with the health authority, but it's not a formal nomination. Okay.
Okay, got it. But in the other countries it is, so
yes,
it has to happen. And when does it need to happen? I see some differences around the globe in terms of this. In some countries, they want nomination officially when the marketing authorization is requested, or when the marketing authorization is granted, but it can be different in other places. So what's the expectation in Latin America?
Yes, in the countries in Latin America, this nomination need to be done when the product starts the commercialization process. Okay. I know that in other countries, this nomination need to be done when you submit the dossier of the product,
Yes,
but
exactly.
it's not the case here in Latin America. The nomination need to be done when you start the commercialization of the product.
Okay. And I'm really curious if I look at these countries, and I know some of the obligations of a local safety officer, of course, but I'm really interested, like, what are the similarities and differences in terms of the obligations of requirements of a local safety officer?
Well, in fact, the local regulations are very similar in terms of obligation of the local safety officer. In general, the person who is responsible for the pharmacovigilance, we need to process individual case safety report. We need to check local literature, scientific local literature here in the countries. We need to submit, and we need to submit aggregate safety report. We are the contact person for with the health authority here in the countries. So to be honest, the obligations are similar in the countries. Talking specifically to Jamaica, about Jamaica, in this case, we don't have any specific formal obligation requested by the health authority. But in the other countries, as I mentioned, Chile, Colombia, Argentina, in all of those countries, Mexico, the obligations are very similar, and those obligations are formally established by the health authority. Okay, and in general, as I mentioned, you need to, in case of Mexico and in case of Colombia, you need to be available 24 hours, 7 days per week.
This is what I wanted to ask, because this can be different per countries. If you need to be available via phone 24/7. Okay, so it's Colombia.
Yes, exactly. And in general, you need to be located in the country in all of those cases. In case of Jamaica, it's not requested to be located in the country. Okay, you can act remotely. Okay, but in the rest of the obligation, I think that are very similar in the countries in Latin America.
You mentioned submission of aggregate safety reports, so PSURs. Is there any special needs, any localization required for aggregate safety reports? Is the European PBRER format accepted by these authorities, or anything unique?
In case of Jamaica, you can use the same document which you submit in Europe with the same format. In case of Colombia and Argentina, you need a local chapters to complete in this document. However, the global document which you submit in Europe is accepted, and you can complete those local chapters with the information that you have in the global document. Okay.
Okay.
In case of Mexico, in fact, you need to prepare a local document. Okay.
Okay.
For the submission of the periodic safety update report. And in this case, you need to prepare a document. In case of Jamaica, Colombia, Argentina, and Mexico also, you can use the same period of submission that you have in Europe or in USA, in the case. Okay. So because the local health authority consider those countries as
so the cutoff points for ICSR collection are the same for as the original one. That's very useful. And do you need to translate anything for Argentina, Colombia, in this chapter?
The executive summary, at least, must be in Spanish. Okay. And you can submit the rest of the document in English. And in case the health authority requests some explanation or some specific chapter, they ask you to translate the specific chapter to Spanish. But in general, you submit the executive summary in Spanish and the rest of the document in English.
Clear. And in terms of inspections or authorities, how active they are, what I see in Europe is that there are definitely standalone GVP inspection. This is the norm. Is this the same story? Do you see this change? Because used to I saw these were linked together, like complete inspection of the pharma companies. But this is more GVP specific in Europe. Is this the same in Latin America, or what is your experience with this?
Well, in fact, here in Latin America, in all the countries, we don't have a specific inspection to assess the GVP practice. In fact, the pharmacovigilance processes are assessed together with the GMP. That means when you receive an inspection from the health authority to assess the good manufacturing practices, together with these inspections are included the pharmacovigilance process. Okay, so as a result of this, those processes are assessed in a general view. It's not a very detailed inspection. Okay. So I think that this is changing for the future. Okay, because in general the pharmacovigilance processes is gain more importance here in Latin America, and we have a specific processes implemented. We have many requirements from the headquarters, the multinational companies, which has the product here in our market in Latin America. Those companies has some specific requirements about the pharmacovigilance processes implemented in the distributors here in Latin America. So the market is pressuring the health authority in order to request, in order to implement the pharmacovigilance processes in the region in the same manner as you have there in Europe. Okay, so I think that this pressure will become to the health authority to adopt and to improve the pharmacovigilance processes in the region, and to assess the pharmacovigilance process in the distributors and importers in different manner. Okay, so probably in the future we are going to have specific inspections for the pharmacovigilance process.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for all the questions and answers today. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.